Hey folks, it's Michael Krasilovsky coming to you from my home office for a change. And in this quick video, I want to talk with you a little bit about the question a lot of my buyers are asking, or rather the statement a lot of my buyers are making, which is, Michael, I don't want to pay more than market value for a house. So let's get at what they're really saying there, what that really means, and if that's even possible. So a lot of buyers are very concerned because the market is just really competitive, and the biggest thing that I'm seeing win offers is, or win a listing when you write an offer, is having substantial appraisal gap coverage, which means that if the appraisal doesn't manage to support the sale price that you've agreed to pay to the sellers, that you'll cover the difference in cash anyway and still close the purchase. And a lot of my buyers are, I would say, mistaking that for meaning that they're going to pay more than a home is worth or pay more than market value for a home. And I think that words have a lot of power and that there's some confusion there, especially surrounding the term market value. So, market value is used in a bunch of different contexts. When you go talk with a realtor about what a home is worth, we tell you the market value. We sell it for market value. When you look at the tax assessor website to see what the assessed value is of the home, it uses the phrase market value. And those are very different numbers. And when you get a home appraised, the appraiser is telling you what the market value of the home is. But I really think we've got some big differences there. If you look at the market value of a home or market value of, a lobster or a cord of firewood, market value is whatever a buyer is willing to pay that a seller is willing to sell for. That defines market value. So in a sense, it's impossible to pay more than market value, because if you're willing to pay X amount of money for a house and the seller's willing to sell it for you and you've got a deal, that defines market value. That is market value for that home. The tax assessor value, completely different brain, different process, using the same verbiage. The appraiser, who is double checking for both the lender and for the buyer that they can validate, that they can justify the sale price, is also using the term market value. But we all know, and appraisers know this too, that there are confines, there are restrictions within which the appraiser has to operate. The appraiser is only allowed to look back in time. They're only allowed to use sold comps, comparable sales in the past, let's say 6 months most of the time, to be able to validate the purchase that is about to close in the future. But they're looking back in time, and it's an upward trending market. The prices go up as time goes by. So the appraiser does, in good faith, try to make adjustments and find ways to compensate for time going by, different conditions, different locations, different circumstances, such as how many offers even showed up on a house, to be able to, I think, in good faith say, yep, this home is worth what you're trying to pay for it, close the purchase, you're good. But they can't always manage to say that, because sometimes the prices are going up so steeply and they're only allowed to look backwards in time, that the sold comps from months ago can't be even adjusted enough to validate the purchase price a few weeks from now. So sometimes that appraised value does fall short. And when that happens, that's when my buyers are like, oh, but I don't want to pay more than the home is worth. They don't want to pay more than market value. And I would beg to differ that the appraised value is the financial institution's way of having a third party try to validate the purchase price, in many ways, in case the buyer forecloses on it. That's kind of a cynical viewpoint, sorry. But that's not necessarily meaning that the house isn't worth that, because let's think about it. If you're the winning buyer bidding on a house and you beat someone else by just a little bit, market value is right there. That's what people are willing to pay for the house, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the appraiser is able to validate it. Now, most of the time, the appraisals don't fall short. They do manage to validate or verify that the purchase price, it can still be considered reasonable based on the sold comps in the past. I would say, from my experience lately, even like 19 out of 20 homes, the appraisal ends up being fine. But we all know in real estate that the risk is definitely very real. The risk is there for the appraised value to not actually be able to support the sale price. And because that risk is very real, that's why sellers are preferring offers that can cover that difference between the appraised value, between the purchase price and the appraised value, cover that gap in cash in case it needs to be covered. That's why that clause is so powerful, and why those offers are winning pretty consistently in this market. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It usually doesn't happen. We usually don't have an appraisal price issue, but we know that it can happen, and we don't know what the appraiser is going to say until we get that report back in the 11th hour. I hope that gives you a little bit more information about at least my philosophies on market value, and also why the appraisal gap coverage clause has been so important, even though it's not like it's happening every time. And tune in for more information about how sellers are comparing offers in just a few minutes here, as I'm going to sit down on my laptop and try to film some quick comparisons for you, looking at summary spreadsheets for multiple offers and why the seller chose the ones that they did. All right, thanks so much. I appreciate your viewership as always. Bye for now.